You cannot feel like a romantic couple if you're only functioning as people who handle logistics, right? If you're only in the business of living together and raising kids together, of course, that role of romantic partners feels awkward. It feels uncomfortable. But here's the thing that most people don't consider is that in order for you to feel like your marriage is connected, you have to plan your life around your marriage, not your marriage around your life. Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. So we are all aware how much our marriage changes after kids. We've got less time, we've got less energy, we've even got less capacity, right? There's just so much going on all the time, so much to manage, so much to do, so much to plan and think about and take care of, that it's so easy to just let the marriage slip, right? Put it on the back burner, deprioritize it. And not because we want to, it just feels like in the hierarchy of what's important, that just seems to kind of slip through the cracks most easily because it's the least demanding, right? You guys have built this relationship up to the point where you wanted to grow a family together. You have this family now, and they are demanding of your care, your time, your energy. And so, what do they say? The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Well, the kids and the house and your job, those are all very squeaky wheels with deadlines or with pressing responsibility that is involved. And so, of course, the marriage is going to feel that, right? It's going to feel the pressure of having all of these things done, and therefore time and energy is no longer being allocated to the marriage. And while at first this seems like, yeah, I mean, we have no other choice. We've got young kids, they don't sleep well. And so if I have to pick between hanging out with you and getting good sleep so that I can have a good day tomorrow, I'm going to pick sleep. That is super understandable. And it's this approach to life as a family and the lack of reassessing and noticing that your marriage does go through phases as the children enter different development phases, enter different phases of readiness, that this lack of like reassessing how your marriage fits in is what causes the relationship to go into what many of my clients have shared they have become, which is roommates, right? They feel like co-parenting roommates. They're like, okay, well, we're managing the house, we're managing the kids, we are working and we are contributing to the family, and we don't feel like we have anything left. We know we should probably hang out, but I don't know when we would squeeze that in. And so it kind of becomes this situation where you have competing priorities, right? And while this isn't really ever talked about, it's definitely by the two of you. You notice the difference in how you interact with each other, and you truly do feel like co-parenting roommates, right? You are in the business of living together and you're in the business of raising kids. However, the thread between you two is starting to fray, and you don't have the energy or the time to figure out what to do differently. You don't have the capacity to dedicate it to your relationship. And so the intimacy and the connection starts to erode unless someone does something about it, right? And so today we're going to talk about how you can go from roommates to feeling reconnected as a couple, even while you're raising kids. I don't want you to become like the typical family where the couple doesn't reconnect until after the kids are older or until they move out. Okay. If you do this, you may become a couple that doesn't make it at all because other things start to come up as a result of the loss of connection, like arguing, like resentment. And that can feel like the end of your relationship. So a lot of couples end up separating and getting divorced because this habit of not connecting and prioritizing the marriage doesn't get broken. It doesn't get replaced with something healthier that is sustainable and helps keep you two connected so that you can maintain that strong partnership in addition to the romance. And then there's some people who are just like accepting of where they're at and they just kind of live in this state of, well, we're married, but we don't really feel like a couple. We just feel like co-parenting roommates. And then the kids leave and they have completely fallen out of the habit and the familiarity of how do we even hang out? How do we do this thing together, right? We barely feel like we're friends. We don't have fun together. We don't know how to have fun together anymore. We don't know how to talk about anything with each other except for the kids in the house and maybe work. So when your buffers leave, aka your kids, then you're left in this state of confusion and awkwardness, right? And so what I would very much like to do is help you, like I help my clients, which is to help you prevent that from happening by charting this new way of how to do life as a married couple with kids. Okay. Not feeling like you have to wait until the perfect moment to be able to dedicate it to your marriage, because this is all about seizing the moment, making the best of what phase you're in, but letting that connection be a non-negotiable. Okay. Because for so many couples, connection, dates, all that stuff with the marriage becomes a nice to have, a luxury, something to squeeze in if there happens to be a time and a place where you have nothing going on and you have childcare. And so this is very much about reframing how you view your marriage, because it isn't about having everything lined up perfectly in order for you to be able to connect with your spouse. It's about creating moments to connect with your spouse. It very much is going to require you to get back into the driver's seat and seize the moment, right? You got to curate your life to include having a strong marriage, not just raising good human beings, not just making sure your house looks perfectly perfect, but also making sure that you're curating your life in a sense that you enjoy it, right? For yourself as an individual, as a partner, and as a parent. Okay. So I know this goes against so much of what we've been taught growing up, which is put everyone else first, right? Prioritize what other people will notice, make sure other people are comfortable, don't be a burden, like all of the good girl stuff that we've been taught and programmed to believe. I'm asking you to shatter that, because so much of what you're wanting out of this life as a parent, as a spouse, as an individual comes out of you owning that you're in charge of your joy. Okay. So much of that comes out of you being brave and courageous and empowering yourself to know that, hey, I can make different decisions. I can do things that are considered unconventional according to past generations. And this isn't so much as how to fit in more. This is about how do I create my life so that I actually thoroughly enjoy it, so that it actually feels like I am fulfilled by it and I don't feel like I need to go on vacation to escape it. Not knocking vacations. I myself love vacations. And I do think there's a time and a place to take a break from parenting so that you can rediscover who you are as a person outside of parenthood. But if you feel like you need to escape from your everyday life a lot, then that's a really big sign that some different decisions need to start being made so you don't feel that way all the time. Okay. So, with that said, most couples don't drift apart because they stop loving each other, right? No one is saying that you've fallen out of love as soon as you have kids. In fact, that love probably transforms because you get to see this different side of your spouse. You're like, wow, you look incredible as a parent. And to step up as a family person really pulls out some heartfelt experiences that we would never even see or be a part of if we didn't grow the family. And yet you do drift apart because your life has now become all about prioritizing, systematizing, and that takes place over connecting most times. And if you don't intentionally structure your life around your marriage, then your life will structure you out of your marriage. Okay. So many of my clients, when they first come to me, I notice that how they're doing life is directly in reaction to the things that are happening around them, rather than them owning that they are actually the driver of their car and the car represents their life, right? And that looks like making sure that marriage stays the priority, not just saying it with words, right? But rather making sure their actions are actually backing up those words and those sentiments behind saying that their marriage is a priority. Now, after having kids, your marriage naturally shifts from something that feels really romantic and light and fun and friendly to operational partnership, because it's kind of what we need to do. Otherwise, we'll go crazy, right? If we have to really think about every single thing that we're doing all the time, we would go mad. Like our brains would break. And so we kind of have to shift into this routine like nature so that our brains can pretty much go on autopilot. Okay, it's Monday. Okay, this person has this activity. This person has nothing. And so this is how we're going to handle that. On Tuesday, this is what's happening. On Wednesday, and so on and so forth. So then you essentially become co-CEOs of this organization that you've created. However small and chaotic it feels, that's what you become, right? You guys are managing schedules together. You're managing school stuff, sports stuff, home life, like meals, groceries, bedtimes, the maintenance of the home, keeping the home clean, right? And that's just the basics. You've also got emotional regulation, yours, theirs, your kids. And it feels like responsibility comes before all of the fun stuff, right? And so we kind of start to categorize our marriage as something fun, something like a treat, right? And with treats, we don't get them all the time. And so we focus on what needs to get done. And somewhere along the way, the connection becomes optional in our minds instead of foundational, instead of something that is necessary and essential. And so it's not about whether you don't care about each other. It's that you've become really good at running a household and really under-resourced at nurturing your relationship. You've thrown all of your resources towards making sure the house runs smoothly, making sure the kids are good. And so you've got this one other thing left, which is your marriage, that isn't getting anything allocated to it because everything else seems like it's on fire all the time, right? So if it's not about you guys not caring about each other anymore, then it's about the romance disappearing. And I don't mean necessarily romantic gestures, right? Like getting flowers or whatever, although that can help if that's what you're into. It's more so about the priority being misplaced. Okay. When marriage moves to the bottom of the list, it doesn't necessarily scream for attention, right? Like much like I gave the example of the squeaky wheel, your marriage isn't going to do that. But what happens is that it quietly atrophies. like kind of like your muscles. When you don't use them, you start to lose them, right? They become weaker, but it doesn't necessarily cause you any pain, but it does set up for potential tension, right? With that tension can lead to heightened conflict, which turns into arguments. And unless you have the skills to navigate conflict, that then becomes resentment, frustration, anger, right? It becomes a lack of desire to connect at all. It also leads to your interactions severely changing for the worse, right? There's no pleasantries anymore. There's more bickering. There's less partnership, and the tension can be felt amongst the family. But the pressing issue is that there's a disconnect between what you say and what you want with what you're actually doing, right? So if you're saying, my marriage is important to me, I value my relationship, I want my relationship to make it, and then you take a look at your calendar, does it paint the same story? Can I point to, oh yeah, that's when they connected, that's when they connected, this is when they went on a date, this is when they did this for fun, to make sure that they're doing good, to check in on each other? Like, can you actually think back to a regular stream of those moments together? You cannot feel like a romantic couple or even lovers if you're only functioning as people who handle logistics, right? If you're only in the business of living together and raising kids together, of course, that role of romantic partners doesn't feel like it has a place there, because that needs to be nurtured. But if that's not being nurtured, then it's gone, right? It feels awkward. It feels uncomfortable. But here's the thing that most people don't consider is that in order for you to feel like your marriage is connected, you have to plan your life around your marriage, not your marriage around your life. Most people, like I said earlier, they try and squeeze in the marriage. Like, oh, we happen to have a free weekend here, let's have a date, right? It's very much reactive. And what I'm asking you to do, what I'm lovingly challenging you to do, is to take a look at what your marriage needs and plan your life around that. So if your marriage needs for you to not have a kid activity or extracurricular every single day of the week, so that you can have that downtime, so that you can have that energy to devote to each other once the kids are down for bed, or to ask a sitter to come in and hang out with the kids so you guys can go do something. Can you have the courage to say no to your child to not having so many activities? Can you involve extended family to support you, right? I know people have families of different sizes, right? There are people with one child, so that might be a little bit easier for them. But then there are people with 4 or 5 kids. And if every kid has an activity or 2 activities each, that could make the juggling act a lot more challenging. But your marriage is the bedrock of your family. It truly sets the tone for how everything feels at home, right? So if your marriage is going well, you're going to be feeling well. You're going to feel more uppity, more calm, patient, understanding, loving, compassionate, fun, flirty with your spouse, right? But if you're not doing well, you're going to feel heavy, drained, frustrated easily, impatient, very serious. And so if you can just understand and accept that the condition and the health of your marriage dictates the vibe of the home, you may start to prioritize your marriage differently, right? Your kids are going to be fine if they have one less thing to do. In fact, I urge you to go listen to a previous episode of mine, episode 273, where I interviewed Lizzie Asa about how important it is to let your kids be bored. go check that out. If you're like, no, I have to have my kids in something all the time, I highly recommend you go listen to that episode. But our kids deserve downtime too, to like just hang out on their own with each other, with friends, or whatever situation you have going on. And I think that in this modern day, we are just so overscheduled to the point where we're not able to invest in our marriage. We're not able to invest in our own health and joy. And we need to bring that back into the picture. We need to bring that in as something that needs to be scheduled in and factored, not just, okay, let's figure out what the kids got going on, and then we put our stuff in wherever we have time. I very much think it needs to be the opposite. What do we need to do and have in place to make sure that our family unit is good, right? And that looks like you taking care of yourself. That looks like you and your partner taking care of the marriage. And then figure out, okay, this is what we have time for. So take a look at your schedule. What is something that can be flexible, right? What's something that's a nice to have, right? So maybe that means deciding that each child only gets one activity or two activities or three activities, depending on how many kids you have, what your capacity is to handle all that, but also so that you can see, well, if I plug in how often we're connecting and how much energy I need in order to have the energy to connect at the end of the night with my partner, if that looks like having less things that you're doing, then do that, right? All that to say, I want you to ask yourself, are you protecting your kids' extracurriculars more than you're protecting your marriage, your date nights, your opportunities to connect? Like at the end of the day, if you're only going to give your marriage your leftovers, then it's going to feel like leftovers, right? It's going to feel that insignificance. So this looks like, on a practical sense, putting recurring dates in your calendar, right? If you have reliable childcare, take advantage of that. If you have someone you can trust, have a chat with them. Hey, this is what I'm really needing to make sure that we're continuing to be a strong couple. So that means that we're going to need to go on dates once every couple weeks, once a month, right? Something like that, and line it up and have them scheduled in advance as much as possible so that everything else gets worked around that, right? If something comes up on the date, well, we already have this planned out. So we can either figure out some other way to do this, reschedule it, don't go, ask someone else to take the kids to this thing, or you can both decide, okay, well, this is really important and we can move our date to this day. It's not about rigidity. It's about making sure that there's a placeholder and there is already a agreed upon commitment to your marriage. This also looks like making sure that you're checking in often with each other, figuring out what's going on, right? Like I know during the first business week of each month, my husband's going to have it busy. So that could look like less presence from him because he's just got a lot of stuff to do. So he's going to be working more, which means that as a partner, for me to connect with him, it means I'm going to be doing more to try and ease his stress, make things easier for him so that he can get his work done as quickly as possible so he can come back to us as a family. This can also look like blocking little windows of time for you two to connect over a coffee, over a family walk where the kids go ahead and you kind of take a step back and walk slower. There are so many different ways that you can maintain your relationship. And I just want to impress on you that it's not done by accident. This is very much a purposeful, intentional thing that needs to happen. And structure is a great way to make sure that happens, just like you structure things for your kids, right? Their activities, their bedtime, getting ready for things. you can do the same thing for your marriage, right? Like, I don't remember who said this. I think maybe Tony Robbins is like, if it's not scheduled, it's not happening. And scheduling things for your marriage doesn't make it any less meaningful. At first, it might kind of feel very like task driven and routine. But if that's where you're at and that's what's going to help you create that habit and expectation of like, oh, this is how often we do things, then you do that, right? The goal is to set your marriage up for success. And if this is the way that you can kickstart that, then who cares about the judgment of most likely just yourself that you have over doing something so unconventional like scheduling something in to make sure your marriage is doing well, right? Just like how you schedule your doctor's appointments. The health of your marriage is so important to you and your family. Now, if you're thinking, but we don't have the ability to go on big dates, and you might be asking yourself, if we can't do that, then what's the point? We'll just wait, right? We'll just wait for the kids to get older so that it's okay for us to leave the home. Connection does not always have to mean going out on big dates. Connection is truly built on micro connections. So things like being intentional about your physical affection, if that's important to you guys. Not like those, what I call drive-by hugs, where you kind of just like go in for a hug as if it's like a habit, but it's not really like meaningful. Like there's no love behind it. But going in for that longer hug or that longer kiss, you know, the ones that kind of feel like the world around you is just melting away and you're really being present with your partner. And you can just feel like you're easing into each other, like you're melting into the moment, right? I've had those moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, when was the last time I kissed you, right? Because we both work from home. So we never really leave each other for extended periods of time. The only time we really leave the house is like if we're taking the kids somewhere. And so there are moments where we're like, oh my gosh, it's been a while. So then I make sure that I take advantage of that as soon as I notice that. Or I go in for a really long hug if I feel like he's stressed or if I'm stressed. So that's one way to go about this. Like holding hands is a great way too. But also with this day and age and our very strong addiction to our phone and all things digital, making sure that we show how present we are by talking without the distraction of a phone, putting it in a different room or flipping it upside down so your screen's facing down, or putting it on do not disturb during certain hours of your day, right? This is a great way to show someone that you think that the time together that you're spending is important to you, that you want to give your full attention to them, which is so important in general, but even more important now that we have so many things that can distract us and we're actively choosing to say, hey, I'm not going to let anything distract us. Okay. Also, little ways to let each other know that you're thinking of each other, whether that means sending texts to each other throughout the day, doing just because things just to brighten up each other's day, like the things that you would do before you got married and had kids. Or something that my husband and I do often is like I will share reels with him that I think are funny or informative, or he'll share Reddit things with me. And it's all about finding ways to relate to each other to create more things to connect over, right? You can also have a debrief before you go to bed, like checking in with each other, not just about how the day went, but asking even more specific questions to show that you're genuinely interested in how they're doing. Asking about something that's going on in their life, asking about how something specific is going. If you're noticing your partner is more stressed lately, letting them know you're there to support them and asking what's the best way for you to support them at this time. Really just like being a best friend to your partner, right? A best friend cares about your experience of life. And the more you can show that, then obviously they're going to feel more seen and important to you. And everybody wants to feel significant to someone, right? Another thing you do is find shared activities that you enjoy together. That could be outside of the home or inside the home. It could be a hobby that you have. It could be playing board games, video games, doing puzzles, cooking, gardening, hiking, pottery, right? Like There's so many different things to explore that you can do in the home or outside of the home. So having childcare doesn't necessarily have to be a roadblock for your connection, right? There are different ways that you can do this. It's about depositing small, consistent connection into your marriage that creates this long-term, sustainable, romantic partnership, right? It's not always about grand gestures. So this does come down to establishing a routine. So if you have childcare, pick up the phone and ask, right? Pick a frequency, whether it's bi-weekly or once a month, and schedule it out. Schedule it out as far as you can if you want to be considerate of the people that will be taking care of your kids, right? Rotate planning between the two of you and keep it simple, right? If you make it hard, that's going to be more reasons to not do it. So keep things simple at first. And it doesn't even have to be expensive. It could be going to walk around a park, going out to lunch, having a picnic, right? It could be very simple or it could be very lavish. Whatever you're willing to do that will get you out the door and back into connection, right? Date night is not about entertainment. It's about undistracted presence with each other, right? You don't have kids to take care of. You don't have people going crazy. You can just give each other your full attention like before you had kids, right? And then talk about things that don't relate to the kids. Sometimes it will come up and that's fine, but try and talk about other things too, about how you're each doing. Like, hey, what's been stressing you out lately? Or what's something that you're really proud of? What's something that you've been really missing doing lately? Or what's something that you've really been enjoying lately? What do you need more from me right now? Right? Have those necessary conversations so that you can have full conversations and grow closer together. Or if you don't have childcare, this is where a lot of couples are like, well, it sucks for us, right? I got nothing. You can still have dates, okay? You can have at-home dates, like having an early dinner with the kids, putting them to bed, and then having a later dinner together alone. This can look like putting the kids in bed 30 minutes earlier so that you can connect. Or you can even make it fun and be like, ooh, on Tuesdays, we're all going to go to our rooms by this time and you guys can read for this amount of time or play with your Legos or play in your room for this amount of time, and then we'll tuck you in. So it seems like it's something special that they get to stay up later when really it's just creating the space for you to connect with your partner. You can also order takeout. You can make it romantic and light candles or get flowers or set up this like comfy date. I had a couple that ended up sending like an in-home movie experience with blankets on the floor, popcorn, all that after the kids were in bed, and they got to enjoy a movie date, but at home, right? You could have phones in the other room, like I said, and just focus on connecting. You can have intentional conversations about things that you really need to discuss. You can also trade with another trusted couple. So like you can watch their kids for a couple hours and then they go on a date and then they watch your kids for a couple hours. Like, this can happen back to back on the same day, or it could happen in different days. Or you can have a morning coffee date while the kids are watching a movie in another room. Or you can walk together after dinner while the kids are up ahead running or scootering or bike riding, right? If you wait for the ideal circumstances, then you're going to stay roommates. Connection does require getting creative. It does require prioritization, okay? And when you do this, your kids are going to see what affection and love look like in real time. They're going to see laughter between you two, teamwork, how you guys repair after conflict, what marriage should look like after kids, right? Marriage after kids does not mean the end of your marriage. It can very much still be lively, and your whole family will benefit from this, right? The home life will feel more harmonious. It'll feel more connected because your marriage literally dictates the emotional climate of your home. So you're not stealing from your kids by prioritizing your marriage. You're actually stabilizing their foundation by prioritizing your marriage. Okay. So all that to say, if you're in that roommate phase, there are things that you can do. Okay. Your marriage is not a failure. You've just gotten to that phase where a lot of people get into after they have kids. It's just a matter of the system needing to change, right? And the good thing is that systems can be redesigned. You don't need to change a whole lot. You just need to change your approach to this and become more intentional about creating moments that you can connect with your partner, not giving your marriage your leftovers and then wondering why it feels like leftovers, but rather really being like, okay, well, if this is what we want, then we've got to take action to make sure that that happens. Okay. So you're going to have to be willing to protect your time. You're going to have to be willing to disappoint your kids sometimes. In fact, it's kind of good for them to experience disappointment sometimes because life doesn't always work out for you, right? And also they need to learn to be considerate of other people and factor other people in, not just themselves. You need to be willing to stop hiding behind your busyness because marriage doesn't feel great right now. And you also need to have a mutual commitment to the growth of yourselves and your marriage. So just do it, okay? Your marriage will be so much better off for it, and so will your kids. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, we've already tried this, we've tried the date nights, still feels distant, that's a sign that it's not just about connecting then. It's about something else. So if that's the case, let's figure it out, whether it's resentment, communication issues, whatever. Book a clarity call. Let's talk that through. Let's help you guys navigate through that issue so that you can get back to the dates and have it actually have a positive impact. Okay. If you know someone that could benefit from this episode, please share this with them. Better yet, share this in your stories and tag me on Instagram so I can give you a shout out. If you love this show, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you listening. And I'm hoping that you are getting so much out of this so that you too can have a really amazing marriage and show your kids a healthy example of what this could look like for them while also enjoying it for yourself. If you would please consider leaving a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, I would so appreciate that. That's what helps the show grow and helps more people like you get the help that they need. And that's it for today. I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.